All right, let's just jump right in. We're about to unpack a surprisingly deep cognitive theory. Think of it like a secret map for the mind. And you're not going to believe where we found it, hidden in a couple of old 90s fashion commercials starring, yes, Brad Pitt. I know, it sounds a little out there, but trust me, this is an absolutely fascinating look at how our brains get primed for life.
So, this is really the central question, isn't it? Could a simple 30-second ad for jeans actually serve as a kind of blueprint for growing up, a guide that takes you from youthful rebellion to mature integrity? Well, the sources we're digging into today make a pretty compelling case that, for a certain kind of thinker, the answer is a resounding yes.
So the whole journey starts right here. It's a roadmap laid out across two very different cinematic moments. The source material frames this as a really powerful narrative arc, one that walks us from a state of what it calls innocence all the way to integrity. And this slide really nails the fundamental shift happening here. The first ad, commercial one, is all about action, right? It's about escape, breaking free, pursuing your own freedom. That's innocence. But then the second ad, it's a total flip. It's about being still, about patience, about just waiting for a change to happen. And that embodies integrity. You see? They're like two sides of the same developmental coin. Okay, so how does a young person watching this connect two completely different stories into one single lesson? Well, the answer lies in something called theory of mind. It's basically our brain's superpower for understanding that other people have their own thoughts and feelings. It's what allows a viewer to not just feel Brad Pitt's desire for freedom, but to also understand the security guard's longing. It's the glue that holds these complex ideas together into one maturing worldview. All right, let's peel back the next layer. This is where it gets incredibly clever. Because these commercials aren't just telling a psychological story. No, they're actually embedding a biological one, using the characters and what they do as these powerful metaphors for things happening inside our own bodies. And here is that hidden code just laid right out for us. Brad Pitt, the guy taking action, he symbolizes the Y chromosome, all about agency and moving forward. And the watchful security guard, he represents a T cell, part of our immune system, always vigilant but unable to act himself. Then, the new person he meets, that's the X chromosome, introducing a new complexity, a new desire. Heck, even the fading genes become a metaphor for a cell membrane decaying, a literal symbol of transformation. Now, when you put all those symbols in order, you get what the source calls a genetic desire progression. It's a whole story. It starts with detection, that's the T cell, the guard, watching. Then comes release, the Y chromosome, Brad Pitt, bursting into action. That leads to binding, where the X chromosome shows up and creates a totally new path. And it all ends in dissolution, where the old self transforms, projecting a new identity out into the future. It's a full-on story of growing up, told in the language of biology. So you might be thinking, how in the world could a brain process all of that from a quick commercial? Well, the magic is in a neurological process called dendritic sequencing. Just picture your brain's dendrites like tiny little branches on a tree. They don't just get one signal, they pull in tons of signals over time. They're grabbing these visual cues, the story beats, the biosymbols, and firing them all together to create one incredibly rich, integrated understanding. And now for the deepest, most mind-bending layer of all. We're moving from biology to pure mathematics. Specifically, how all of this maps onto a geometric model of our own consciousness, one that seems almost perfectly designed to resonate with, say, a 14-year-old who thinks visually, in 3D. The framework for this is something called projective geometry. Now, I know, that sounds super complex, but just think of it as a blueprint for your mind. It's a way of modeling consciousness that is all about shifting your point of view, about transformations, and, this is the most important part, about projecting future possibilities. It's basically the mathematics of what if. So let's see how the story literally becomes geometry in action. That initial escape? That's not just breaking out. It creates what's called a projective point, a brand new destination on the map. Then, when a competing desire arrives, it expands that single point into a sheaf of lines. Suddenly, one destination explodes into a whole fan of new possibilities. In the second ad, the immersion in water becomes a plane at infinity, a metaphor for the old identity just dissolving into this vast, timeless space. And the final transformation? That's a complete viewpoint shift. The entire story is literally a geometric proof unfolding on the screen. And here's the real kicker, the reason this all matters so much. For an adolescent who already thinks in 3D space, these sequences act as what the source calls projection operators. They're not just stories, they are functional mental tools. They are installing templates, blueprints, for how to handle agency, desire, and transformation in their own life.
Okay, so we've covered the psychology, the biology, and the geometry. Let's tie all of this back to the real world and really get why this kind of symbolic messaging is so incredibly powerful for a young mind. Just take a look at the unique state of the teenage brain. Emotional responsiveness, through the roof. Susceptibility to media, also incredibly high. But at the exact same time, cognitive control, the part of the brain that says, whoa, slow down, is still under construction. This creates this perfect storm, a window of opportunity for powerful, emotionally charged stories to make a deep, deep impression. See, what's happening inside that brain is a massive cleanup process called synaptic pruning. It's basically a use it or lose it phase, where the brain strengthens the connections it uses and gets rid of the ones it doesn't. And that means that powerful, resonant stories like the ones in these ads don't just entertain. They can literally help shape and rewire a teenager's entire perspective, their internal story of who they are and who they could become. And hey, this isn't just some fringe idea. The sources we're looking at today confirm that this whole framework, this blend of neuroscience, geometry, and media, is considered elegant, technically robust, and deeply resonant. It's viewed as a truly successful model for giving a young 3D visual thinker a dynamic template for navigating life's biggest changes. Which leaves us with one final big question. This whole explainer has been about one hidden blueprint found in a pair of old commercials. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other hidden blueprints, from movies, songs, or ads you saw growing up, are still, right now, quietly shaping the way you see the world today?